You don't get the same kind of fatigue from doing that because you're not staring at everybody's faces. You're watching what the cards are. And I think there are lessons that we might be able to take from that and apply it to conferences. For one thing, I thought it was interesting that I first read on an earlier side the word recreate as recreate. And I also think there's something to tease out of that. And, you know, one of the important things about in-person conferences is the ability to recreate with your colleagues. And that's harder to do online. But again, trickstercards.com, I am not a paid spokesperson. But I think you could do card tournaments online that would actually, you know, get people connected to one another.
Just a comment on that. Thanks. That's very, very useful. I know that, for example, at the Research Data Alliance plenary, at one of them, they had like a trivia thing where they ran a trivia session for the virtual participants. And that was, again, not so much a focus on seeing everyone, but just putting people, putting questions to people and discussing them and things like that. That was quite fun. I also play a lot of games online on Board Game Arena where you can play board games. And I also play a lot of tabletop role-playing games via Discord. So I know exactly what you mean. And some of the people I play with, I've played with for years and I've never seen them in person. But you still build a connection and interaction with them. Any more comments from the room?
Yeah, I have a comment. And hi. I hope you can now see my actual face, which
very, very tiny. Sorry.
Well, if you're in the room, you can see my face in 3 dimensions, obviously. April Johnson, 2I2C. My entire team is remote, and I also work in community building across the Jupyter ecosystem, which is remote, international, multiple time zones. So one of the things that I have learned is this: when a meeting, any part of a meeting is virtual, the meeting is now virtual. Like, this is a virtual meeting. So one of the ways that we can make that better is if we want to interact, like, I just got my laptop out and I put my face on screen so you could see it. That was a great point from earlier. Like, making both the human participants visible, the notes visible, the ideas and the brainstorming and the conversation visible and visual. Like, this becomes a completely remote meeting on some levels, even though some of us are in person, when any part of it is virtual, because the virtual work is a lot of work for all the reasons y'all mentioned, right? Like the Zoom fatigue, the effort of like looking at everything on your screen, you all being very tiny on my screen too, frankly. And that, I think, is something that we always need to incorporate into our meeting design. One of the things that my colleagues in the Jupyter community have done really well, I think, is making sure that everyone is in the shared notes, and that those kind of like kick off the meeting sort of games and things like that engage everybody. And so that's really easy to pick up later if you're viewing it asynchronously. And also making sure that whatever tools you're using are available to everybody, whether that's like a brainstorming tool like Miro or just a Google Doc or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear what the AGU best practices are, because we're not following a lot of what I think of as best practices for hybrid meetings in this conversation just yet. So I'm going to try to do a little bit better by at least being here on my screen.
Yeah, thanks very much. Any other comments from the room?
It's like we have one more.
Yeah, somebody just mentioned best practices for hybrid meetings. Do you have a reference to that, please, that we could put in the notes? Is there something floating around? I know AGU did something on, online participation, but that was years ago. Yeah. I mean, this is a resource we could add to we've got a resources section, if you could scroll down in the notes. And I also like your comment about making sure people who are attending are participating in the notes, because so often I run virtual meetings with 50 people and only 10 people put their names in the notes.
I just have one comment to add. My name is Matthew Bidon with NOAA's Integrated Ocean Observing System Office. I'm plus 100 all of the comments that everybody has said, especially making resources available, online resources, so that we can go in and collaboratively document, get everybody together on the same page. One thing, as a hybrid meeting organizer, I work with 11 regional associations around the coast, oceans, and Great Lakes of the United States. So we are covering all sorts of different time zones and everything. When we host our annual meeting, one of the things that we still haven't done is allocated the appropriate costs to hosting a hybrid meeting at the scale that you need to be able to host it. We've been doing it on a shoestring budget, which is going to Amazon and buying some microphones that we pass around the room, but we don't have video capability. And that really makes a significant difference when you're having that hybrid capability. So for those that are organizing meetings, making sure that you're putting in that extra $10,000 that it takes to do a proper hybrid event, instead of just shoestringing, hey, we have a microphone and a camera on our laptop that we're all going to use. That from what I've seen, is the people who invest in that end up making a much better experience all around. But that takes a lot of resources. So
yeah, yes, and I have to say also, I'd like to comment on the setup. So it's really great, even though it's small. It's really great to be able to see the room. Very often, when we facilitate virtual or hybrid meetings remotely, all I get to see is the laptop at the front. And again, I have no idea who's in the room, because very often the camera focuses on what normally would be the speaker. And if there's no speaker because we're running the session from remote, then that's a pretty useless thing to show. And sometimes it just doesn't work to show the room for whatever reason. So I really like this setup where I can see a small room. I mean, as I said, the small is my problem, but where I can get a bit of a feel for the room, because it's really hard to facilitate otherwise. Leslie?
Steph, just for those of you who asked what the room setup is, I immediately pinged the ESIP staff, and I've got a response in the notes from Alicia as to what the room setup is. And so just please check that that's giving you the information you want, because we could ping her for more.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And very quickly, and this is Larissa Shulkin joining from Boston, Massachusetts. And I have a pleasure. I just was notified that I will be chairing the ESIP Education Committee. So what a privilege. Thank you. I just want to emphasize the importance of having dedicated person to manage in-person part and virtual part, because somebody has to really have really clear understanding what is it that virtual audience is experiencing and what is in-person audience is experiencing. So if I know it's probably too much to ask, but if possible, in general, we need to really understand the hybrid conference has generally speaking, has to have two different scenarios, if you will, and two different coordinators, if you will. But it's not always possible, but it's always helpful to think about what is it that your audience actually experiencing. So, yeah, thank you. And thank you, Leslie, for taking care of my question. And I would love to learn more about the setup, and I will take a look at the notes. Thank you. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I don't think...
Sorry, just one quick one. I've noticed that just another variation I've never seen done before. In the attendance list in the meetings, I see people are adding whether they're virtual or in person. That's a very helpful piece of information. So if you've already filled it in, can you add in person or virtual?
That's really great. That's really useful for us to know as well. Okay. I don't see any more movement in the room, so I'm assuming there's no more questions at this point or no more comments. Okay. Now I see.
Looks like one last one.
Yeah, sure.
One small trivial comment. I don't think we should call the online people virtual. You all are real people.
Remote.
So you're online or you're remote, but
Yeah.
you're not virtual participants. You're real participants. So the
That's a good-
trivial thing, but it's like, elevating your reality.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
I think that's really important to also have the right framing of the discussion, and that's a really not good point.
Yeah, it is. So I apologize. The slides will not have that sort of sorted, but that's a very good point. Okay, I think I'll hand over to Jens now. Is that right?
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Okay, can you see your slide?
I can see my slide.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'll give you a brief overview of our planning process for having regional hub in Perth, Western Australia, alongside the European Geosciences General Assembly 2027, which will be running in early April 2027. Next slide. So this is from the mission statement of the European Geosciences Union General Assembly, where the EGU, and I'll say we because I'm part of that outfit, our goal is to provide a forum where scientists, especially early career researchers, can present their work and discuss their ideas with experts in all fields of geosciences by offering a hybrid, inclusive, and environmentally friendly as possible General Assembly that responds to the main scientific challenges of geosciences worldwide. So I think that's really important that there's this mission statement for the General Assembly. Next slide, please. So a few stats to show what the scale is of what we're dealing with. So these are the numbers from this year's General Assembly, where there were over 21,000 participants. 19,500 of those were on site in Vienna, but also 2,100 were online in total from 123 countries. And of the participants, 58% were early career scientists. There was travel support for online participation, which did allow some people to come, but some of those who did receive travel support could not travel to Vienna because of visa restrictions. Next slide. So the second map just showed the remote participation. This slide shows the historical development of participation in the conference since I won't go into the history of the EGU, but since the meeting started, it has grown from 10,000 to now over 20,000 participants with its ups and downs. And you can see things happening in the 2020s. The 2020 General Assembly had to switch to online only very quickly. 2021, you know what happened. And then since 2022, the General Assembly has been fully virtual, fully hybrid. Sorry, not fully virtual, fully hybrid. And so what we see is that 10% at the moment of participants participate remotely, but with a little bit of market research in Australia, we found out that there are quite a number more people who would participate, but at the moment find that not so satisfying to use the remote options and have some problems, whatever the problems are, to actually travel to Vienna. And let's go to the next slide. So not everything worked, I must say. Just click again. So because the thing that I must admit doesn't work at the moment are the virtual posters. So EGU and Copernicus, its conference organizer, are working on this. So we did try GatherTown for a couple of rounds, and it's a bit hit and miss. Because really building the connection between the remote and the on-site participants doesn't really work that well, because when you're on-site, to then pull out your whatever device in a very noisy atmosphere doesn't really work that well. So for next year's General Assembly, EGU bought some more hardware, some more big screens with cameras to put into the poster halls to allow a direct interaction between remote and on-site participants over big screens in the poster hall. That's at least the information I have right now. Next slide, please. I think a really important point in how EGU can make this work is that it benefits from a very specific advantage. That is its very good working relationship with Copernicus as the conference organizer, and the Austria Center Vienna as the conference venue, and the Vienna Tourism Board. In this combination, this prevents EGU from getting overcharged on audiovisual equipment and operation. Then there's also no pressure or incentive, as some call it, from a tourism board to have bums on seat. And I have anecdotal evidence of this, which is I cannot just share with everybody. It's confidential, but I've heard this a couple of times, how there are restrictions coming from the conference venue and the local tourism board on driving in-person participation. As far as I know, the audiovisual equipment that is used in the rooms, especially the small meetings rooms, is owned by EGU. So that makes it easy for them to set the technical environment, and the conference audiovisual staff, the audiovisual support is provided by student temporary staff. So they employ a host of students that help running the sessions in the room. And I think this combination works really well for EGU. Copernicus did some financial modeling of what the costs are, and according to them, adding a remote component to the conference in Vienna adds 10% to the total cost of the meeting. So with actual additional participants paying registration, this becomes quite a viable option for them. But it's not only about the cost and technical environment, it's also about how to make things work, how to make it worthwhile participating in some remote fashion. And that's what we are experimenting with in the Perth Regional Hub. Let's go to the next slide. So the concept of the Perth Regional Hub is based on our experiences with the ESIP hubs that we've been running in Australia since last year, and also what we've learned from the EGU remote participation options. There's also other material that we took information from, that is materials published by the Future of Meetings Network, and also the International Science Council has published materials on how to make how to plan fully virtual or hybrid events. Next slide, please. So the EGU 2027 Perth Regional Hub is an official event of the EGU General Assembly. It will be visible in the program, and it will be live streamed like all other EGU sessions. Because of the time zone differences, it's something for people with insomnia when they're not in Perth. But it will be, the Perth session will be treated like a session happening in Vienna. And just as a kind of logistical thing, to make it easy and avoid accounting and exchange rate and whatever difficulties, it will be arranged in such a way that participants in the hub will be asked to register as virtual participants at the General Assembly, and then in addition to that, buy a ticket to join the hub so that we can cover our catering costs. I think that ticket price will be quite symbolic because we've already secured support from other organizations in Australia who want to support the Perth hub. And so it's to get an idea of how many people would actually come, because Perth is really very far away from other Australian population centers. So to give you an idea of Australian geography, almost everybody lives on the east coast, and then there's a big gap and a lot of sand and shrub, and then you land at the west coast at a distance that's pretty much comparable to New York, Los Angeles, and then Perth is on the Los Angeles side of the conference, and people would still have to travel, but it's far easier to travel to Perth than to travel to Vienna. And so the response that we got from a survey of the Australian geoscience community was quite enthusiastic, and with the means that we have in this pilot event, I think we will be sold out. And EGU is very interested in this concept, as the mission statement says. It is a global conference for everybody. It should be accessible to as many people as possible. So EGU is watching this closely and planning to expand this concept to Africa, South America, and other regions in the future. Next slide. I think I'll skip this because the numbers aren't. The only thing that they show is that the remote participation rates are somewhat lower than the standard rates. In terms of accessibility, certain groups get a really good rate because they can join virtual for free, and those are undergraduate and master students and participants from lower and low middle income countries. Next slide, please. Why Perth? Because of the time zone advantage. You can see in this table that of the large cities in the region, looking at Tokyo, Sydney, and Auckland, Perth really has the best overlap with the times in Vienna to allow both synchronous and asynchronous participation. The asynchronous part is a bit difficult in that sense, in that science sessions at EGU are not recorded. It's only the union events that are recorded. So to be able to participate in the science session, it is in their setting important to do this synchronously. And so this is where the time zone overlap really helps. Next slide, please. So translating this into a timetable structure, the morning in Western Australia is still too early for Vienna, but this will be time for the EGU Perth session and networking. So that's really one of the important points, that what people miss in not being on site is they miss the networking. And so our idea was, with having a regional hub, we would give people some networking opportunity and so give them some of that advantage of traveling to a conference. Traveling from wherever they are in Australia to Perth would also take them out of their everyday environment and let them concentrate on the event. And then as the day progresses, then the Western Australian afternoon that overlaps with the Vienna morning, people can then participate remotely in the sessions in Vienna. And then we have a logistical problem with the building and security, etc. So for the Western Australian evening, people would have to go somewhere else to follow the Vienna afternoon sessions. But I think that still works very well because in this setting, people have the choice of what they want to do. And if we were to host everything on site in Perth, it would become an ultra long day, which would span from sometime in the morning all the way into the night. I think that's a bit unrealistic, but in this setting, it gives people the flexibility to join the parts that they feel they really want to join. So Stephanie commented about the distance. Perth to Jakarta is closer to Perth is closer to Jakarta than it is to Sydney. That is true, and the local content is that there will be the Perth session in terms of talks that will be live streamed, and we will have a poster session as well, where people who participate in the virtual poster session can also present their physical poster and discuss it with people on site. Next slide, please. Yeah, that was my bit on what we're planning to do with EGU.
Thanks, Jens. Any comments or questions from either the room or virtual? Sorry,
I'd like to make a comment, Stephanie, because I've put it in the chat. I just want people in ESIP to know that these little experiments that we've been doing since July 2025 have led to a major conference working with us to see if we can scale up this model we've been doing in ESIP. So kudos to ESIP for giving us the starting point and the evidence that this could possibly work.
Mark?
Mark Parsons, AGU. Just a couple questions, Jens, on so that EGU relationship with Copernicus, that seems super valuable, that they're not getting overcharged. And, I don't know if AGU could do that, especially since AGU now moves, and doesn't have the home base that it used to have. And then I didn't understand how the relationship with the tourist board removed the incentive to get bums in seats, because I know that is definitely an issue with some conference facilities, that they discourage hybrid for that very reason. And then so before you answer that, though, just a final comment about owning your own equipment. ESIP used to own its own equipment for virtual stuff. It turned out to be more cost effective not to own the own equipment. So, I mean, I guess the point is your mileage may vary.
I think starting from the equipment side, it depends on how you're being charged for that. And anybody who has organized side meetings at AGU can probably understand that sometimes it would be cheaper to just buy things from your local whatever shop and then donate it afterwards than renting it from Marriott. Sorry to call out names. So there's probably different factors that come into play here. The tourism boards, what I've heard, sometimes have influence on the rates that are charged for the rental of the venue, and so in the case of Vienna, the tourism board and the center are really keen on keeping EGU in Vienna. There have been discussions over the years of moving the conference somewhere else, and then they got very good terms on the rental, and with the other crisis that precipitated from the pandemic, the conference venue and others were really accommodating in terms of the what had to be paid when the meeting was cancelled, and changes, and how much room was needed, all the adapting to the new situation. So I think that it's when we talk about having remote options together with an in-person meeting, it's not a natural law that this has to be expensive. It depends on the setting of where. The setting in which the conference is being organized. And EGU is an example where there's a very favorable setting that makes it very easy for EGU to offer remote participation options because they have such a favorable environment.
Stephanie,
Leslie?
I'll just add to Mark's question about tourism boards. This may be an Australian thing only, but quite often a conference, apart from getting more subsidies from the conference centre if you have a greater online percentage of attendees, and this has affected ESIP as well, local tourism boards will offer the conference a subsidy provided they guarantee a set number of people coming to the conference centre or to the town. And what that means is it makes the organisers very, very reluctant to offer an virtual presence because it may affect that subsidy. So again, it's like Jens is saying, it's the hidden costs behind the scenes of running conferences and the advantages you can get by having it in person. Larissa, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Just a quick test, so to speak. Can we ask the in-person participants, what is it that, is there anything that you miss in a room in the current settings? Is there anything, how does set up for you? Is it efficient? Is there anything that you miss? Those are you who in a room in person. Go ahead.
Unless we're logged into our own laptops, we can't follow the chat.
Mm.
And I think, and that's a big thing. That's where you all have an advantage, actually. I miss Twitter for this regard. That used to be meeting chat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So laptop basically it's almost like a requirement, if you will, right?
Oh, the chat, yeah.
The chat.
If there was another screen displaying the chat, would that work for you? Or is it also about the actual participation in the chat?
He's saying he would not be able to contribute to that chat.
Yeah.
He can probably read it, but it would be just one side sort of communication.
Yep.
Right. And if I may, I see April, who is both in person and online. So April, what made you to make this choice? It was an aha moment for you at some point?
I'm waiting for a mic. Okay, I have a mic now. So partially I could see things scrolling by on the chat. So I was like, all right, there's an element of this meeting that I would like to participate in. And part of it was one of you said you couldn't really see the room and I wanted to say something. So I put my face on screen so that you could see my face while I talked. That's just, I have learned that as a good practice for remote work. And yeah, I think also being able to use captions and things like that, like the accessibility goes up for all of that. Yeah. And there are a couple of us who are on the chat who are here, by the way, not just me.
I'll pass the mic to Karen and Matt after.
So I don't want to occupy the floor too long, but it looks like somebody else would like to. Yeah, go ahead.
Denise Hills, currently unemployed, and looking. So if you're hiring, I'll talk to you. Anyway, it's like I would love to. I thought about signing on remotely to follow the chat, because that is something that I miss Twitter for. But I was actually having connection issues. The Wi-Fi here is not great. When you have 200, 300 people all accessing the Wi-Fi, particularly with a video intensive, it is something that ESIP has dealt with at conference centers in the past, where the Wi-Fi was not sufficient for the people. So that's something to consider when you're doing hybrid meetings, is robust internet infrastructure, so that we can enable more of what April did. Because I was going to sign on, but I had like really terrible connection on my laptop. So I think Matt actually had his hand up first, and then.
Yeah, fantastic. And before I'll stop talking, I would like to ask Jens, and I see your hands up.
Yeah.
About EGU. I hope I don't see any references to one of the country on the other side of the planet. It's the US. I hope that people will be able to join from US as well. We just don't want to be dismissed for any reason. But quick question: when you reference to General Assembly, I just want to double check, because I sit on a Science Summit UN General Assembly committee, so it has nothing to do with the UN General Assembly, correct?
Okay. No, it's just General Assembly is just the name of the
name
conference.
Okay, yeah.
Because also in the way it's organized, is where it has its General Assembly. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. And back to you, Jens. And forgive me, English is my third language, so I'm trying to do my best here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to add on the Wi-Fi thing, because that's been something that EGU has also worked on a lot, to get sufficient bandwidth on the Wi-Fi in the conference center in Vienna, and they managed to get it to a level where now they actually recommend to people when the room for a session is too full and people can't join anymore because it's just the room is full, to just join remotely. Open their laptops, sit somewhere else, and join the session from their laptop, and that works. It's also a great option for people with sensory issues, when maybe later in the day your battery is empty and you just can't handle sitting in the room anymore, but you still want to follow the session, and be somewhere close to where it's happening. So having the infrastructure in place is a really important part. Then yesterday, after our preparation meeting, I thought we should actually draw a pyramid of needs for a conference, like Maslow's pyramid of needs. What is our pyramid of needs for a meeting? What is the minimum we need to make it work, to make it worthwhile attending, and then all the bits that we add? And I think the cyber physical environment is one of those elements that need to be worked out to be adequate for what we want to achieve.
Thanks. That's a bit of a segue to the next bit, but I can see there's an arm up, I think, in the room. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just had two. Is this working? Thumbs up, yeah.
Yep.
Two small logistical things I noticed. One is that even though April, you did such a good job with getting your video going, so you were joining the Zoom, because the audio came through here, the highlighted video was still the group one, and she may have had no idea that you were there, where you were, how to find you. So just one of those little things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can't hear that. So can you use the mic? Yep.
And the other thing I just noticed is we currently have someone sharing the meeting who can't see in this room to see who's, got mics and is ready to talk and stuff. So I don't know what the solution is, but it's just an observation that like you can clearly put a hand up in Zoom, but when you have a remote chair, there's another challenge of how they moderate the room here.
I can see quite a few of you, and I can see the movement, although I can't, except for Mark, I can't identify who the person is. Yeah, sorry. And actually, that's why I put on my glasses, because that means I have a little bit of a better view of the room.
Matthew Biddle with No IES again. We tried to have folks do the join on your laptops, Zoom in the room so everybody can see each other's faces. That turns into a microphone, speaker, reverb catastrophe. It tends to always fail for us. So what we've done instead is, and this is just general guidance of, as a meeting starts, explain where your communication platforms are. If you're going to use Zoom, if you're going to use the chat clients, what we do is we actually say, if you want to have a chat conversation, we have a Slack space. Go into that Slack space and use that so that it's both in person, hybrid. You don't have the microphones, all of those conflicts. And then I had something else, but I forgot it. Shoot. Yeah, I'll probably raise my hand again when I remember what it was.
Yep. So, and that is actually one thing that I had a bit of a problem with the first ESIP hubs we did. So I actually did post a couple of things on Slack, but we weren't sure how to best with our hub, where we basically would watch recordings and put comments into the collaborative notes for the session. We weren't sure what was the best way to make sure that the people running the session would see those. So should we post them on Slack, or should we post on Slack that we put something in the collaborative notes, which seems a bit convoluted? Or how would we best interact with the main hub meeting, with the main meeting? Sorry, slightly after each session. So and I actually had no idea that Quick Chat was a thing, so I didn't really use the chat function of that. So yeah, I think that's a long-winded way of saying I totally agree. I think it's really good to have clear ideas of how to communicate, where to communicate, under what circumstances, and ideally not have too many different platforms, because then it becomes a little bit difficult. So having something like Slack, for example, for persistent, both synchronous and asynchronous, can work really well if people use Slack. And I don't know how many people at the ESIP meeting actually use the ESIP Slack. When I was posting there at the last year's July meeting, it felt like there were probably the same, maybe 20 people who would sort of post a lot, but I had no idea how many people were at the meeting and how many people were actually just reading the Slack and not necessarily posting. I can see another arm at the back.
Yeah, I'm back. Matthew Villanova. I just remembered one of the things. So we hosted a meeting. Our meeting is like 150 people. We're not talking EGU, AGU. This is a small, but it's widely diverse around the country. During our meeting, we actually had a network outage in the building that we were hosting, and it was a completely hybrid. What happened is we were able to spin up hotspots and run the entire meeting off of hotspots off of somebody's phone.
Oh, wow.
Because we've just had, we didn't have all that crazy infrastructure for video and all. We just had a laptop with a microphone and small camera, but we were able to run it off of a hotspot. So the age that we're living in now, that is a capability, and that is something to have handy when you're running a meeting, to at least keep some minimal visible preference.
Yep.
Availability online.
Sorry, before I come to you, Larissa, I just wanted to say, it would be really great if some of these points could be captured in the notes. So I've just put that up there again for people to please add things. Larissa?
Yeah, my point was exactly, first I missed who shared that important information. I don't see, that's too small on my screen, and I didn't hear the name of the person who raised his hand and shared the hotspot information. That would be really great. Yes, I don't know. Sorry, I missed your name, but it's very important point. Absolutely. And also, I just would like to say a couple things very quickly. Since I have many hats on my head, as most of us have, the help is on the way. I am a professional engineer and an educator and a scientist and all of that. So if you would be guest of one of our labs here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. A lot of help is on the way from AI and from new hardware. So it's coming to the public relatively soon. So hopefully all of these sort of old-fashioned stuff will be resolved, and you would be very happy about this. So just remember, this is not forever, and I don't want you to be disappointed or say, this is too hard for me. So help is on the way. Engineers and technologists are thinking about this. They had the feedback from scientists and all of the folks around the world. So it's coming. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. Thank you very much. Fantastic.
Thanks, Larissa.
Back to you, Stephanie.
Yep. So I was just going to go to the Google Doc. Now I don't know if you can still see my screen, and I don't know if that's big enough or if I need to make that bigger.
We can see your screen, but it's a small, at least for those of us who struggle with different vision problems.
Is that better?
It's much better, yes.
Okay, cool. I can probably make it one bigger. Yeah, that should hopefully work.
Works fine. Works fine. Thank you.
Cool. I just wanted to go down here for a bit and see if there's anything we want to elaborate on. Now I don't see anyone else in the room, and I don't see anyone else on Zoom having put their hand up. Is that right? Because I can't see all of the room.
I was just waiting for a moment. Hi, Alexis Hunzinger. I'm with NASA Goddard Data Center. And I guess a point I wanted to bring up is more of in the social aspect of virtual and hybrid meetings, is that sometimes, and I'll use the word, it's a little strong, but sometimes there's animosity between the in-person and the remote participants, in the sense that they both get frustrated with each other. I'm saying that because I've been on both sides. And when you're in person, you forget that people are online, and you might be annoyed you have to wait for the microphone because you already started your point, and then you have to stop and come back. Or if you're online, you go, why aren't they speaking into the microphone? I don't know what they're saying. So I think sometimes the social element can get in the way of people getting the most out of it, even if we set up a lot of the technical things that help. So it's just something to think about, and not everyone is going to be on board, I think, with hybrid meetings immediately. So how do you break down as many barriers as you can to get people in a comfortable space to be able to participate fully?
I think responding to that, I totally agree. And the other thing is that the online people can get frustrated if the discussion only happens in the room and nobody looks at the screen and notices that there are actually people who have their hands up. So that I've had that happen in quite a few conference sessions as well. But I think ideally what we would want to do is make the experience as smooth as possible and as pleasant as possible for both the in-person and the remote participants, so that everyone is sort of happy, and ideally so that there's quite a lot of interaction between the two. But that's what we'd like to do, and that's why we really need to work out what people have seen work and why it worked, and sort of figure out what we need to do. So I'm just looking at a comment. in chat from Jens. Did you want to elaborate on that?
Well, we often experience this interference between the remote participation and the demands at home, and this is a solution that doesn't work for everybody. But if you have the ability to just say, I'm at a conference this week, I don't have time for other things, or my time for other things is limited, that helps. It's partially it's a matter of self-discipline, but it's also partially a function of what you can actually allow yourself. And so for participating in this year's EGU, where I couldn't travel because of travel restrictions, because of the war in the Middle East, I had an email, in auto reply in my email saying, I'm attending a conference this week, and my responses to your emails will be delayed. And so somebody said to me, "Oh, you're not in Vienna because your email reply says I'm attending a conference." And so setting this set of expectations helped me concentrate on the conference and not be distracted too much by everyday business during that week.
Yeah. Sorry, just one sec, just in response to that. So with the hub meetings that we've been doing, I have sort of put all those sessions that we're doing in my calendar, and people look at my calendar and go, oh my God, I'm not going to put anything more in there, which is really good, because that's like, if I've been in Zoom meetings for 6 hours a day, please don't put any more meetings in my calendar, because A, there's no time, and B, I really need to look at something else other than the screen for a bit. But that doesn't always work. Larissa?
Yeah, since I'm joining the ESIP from engineering side, because of the nature of my work, prior to me becoming an educator and diving in science, sort of deep end, if you will, I'm in virtual communication since early 2000. So because we had no choice, we work in global teams. And since early 2000, we had to work across the globe in virtual teams. So, basically, what I was going to say, and many of you joined the virtual world, so to speak, during COVID, but let me just say that it's really brought the productivity to the very high level. It used to be, at least on my end, I could afford to go to 5 conferences a year. Now I could not really imagine without missing any important conferences, and I attend 15 conferences a year. So without virtual participation, it would simply not be possible. So yes, give or take, that really, and I want to really acknowledge Alexis, and I don't see you in the room, but I remember your important note. Behavioral scientists really worked hand in hand with us to really resolve this issue, and there are tons of research papers published specifically on your question. And we really did work hand in hand with us behavioral psychologists to resolve this, because especially we work globally with multicultural teams. So what you brought, I don't know if I pronounce your name Alexis or Alexa correctly, but it's very important point, and there are very specific sort of algorithm how to do it to really ease the pain between virtual audience and in person. So yeah, so that's what I was going to share with all of you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. So we're getting a lot of really, really good comments, which is great. One thing I just wanted to quickly ask, because no one has said anything about what other meeting formats they have tried. Has anyone tried anything like hub meetings, or different from normal, the normal sort of duopoly between fully virtual, fully in person? So have you tried anything else? Any sort of more mixed or blended modes, or anything completely different? Okay, doesn't look like it. That's fine. Yeah.
I'll just talk quickly about the science forum that the CSIRO Mineral Resources Research Unit held last week, which I would call a fully disseminated format, where we had people meeting in auditoriums on sites across the country, and then also joining from their desks. And what I liked about this format was that there was no hierarchy. It was like I think April said this earlier in the session. Everything was remote. Whether you were in an auditorium or at your desk, everybody was a remote participant, and so that helped to level the playing field in that sense. What it did add, having some people on site, was that we had morning tea sessions, so having some refreshments between the science sessions, and the networking that this allowed. So I think that in answering Stephanie's question is a somewhat different format again to a blended mode of participation.
Yep. Thank you.
In preparing for the session, one of the questions that I asked was, what's the experience in organizations like NASA? I would expect that NASA, being spread across so many sites, would have a lot of experience with meeting formats, or is the way NASA is organized very siloed and everything happens around specific sites?
This is Mark again. I don't work for NASA anymore, but NASA has been doing virtual meetings before the internet. I mean, maybe not that long, but I mean, back in the day, they had telecons, endless telecons back in the 80s. So NASA lives by virtual meetings, but I don't think that they necessarily, except for when they're like trying to do a special conference or something, do it especially well. And so you heard from Matt Biddle about what NOAA's doing. It sounds like NOAA's trying to be a bit more creative, but I am skeptical that the federal agencies are doing anything especially clever. NASA does have a goal to be inclusive, so their meetings, they do try and do them hybrid. How well they do them is, variable. Yeah, you're right, because there are obvious number of very serious limitations on what can you do as a government agency employee. Yeah, but look into the private large corporations. They really doing it for many years.
Emmanuel was putting into chat that we need those little robots that they have in shopping centers or hospitals for on-site participation that would allow us to join the meeting in robot. I think it was Hewlett Packard who did some research on that. That would have been in the early noughties, in the computer-supported cooperative work area, where they had like a tablet on a little robot that would move into a meeting room with real people, and that would be the remote participant, for example. I do remember that. Okay, so so they have been used, but have been a little bit of a distraction. Okay. I just wanted to, so please, if you have any more thoughts on any of this, or if you have any more contributions, please feel free to add them to the notes after the session as well, because some people would like to think about this maybe and come up with some more things later. Please put them in. We will keep an eye on the notes, so we will look at them certainly until the end of the ESIP meeting. And sorry, I'm just being distracted because there's more in the chat. It would perhaps be helpful to do a bit of training for participants to get the most out of being remote and in-person participants. Yes. Just knowing more about Zoom use would improve a lot of people's experiences. That is true. Yes. And I think we've come a long way. So when I was helping out with the Research Data Alliance Plenary in 2020, I actually had to do one-on-one sessions with people who had never used Zoom so that they would be able to run their session in Zoom. So we've come a long way, I think. But yes, there's a lot of tips and tricks that are not super complicated, but really improve people's experience. So yeah, I totally agree with that. We are nearly at time. I just wanted to say, do we have any particular takeaways or shared insights that we want to highlight here? What would be the key things for you that you have taken away or would like to flag?
Hi, this is just a comment.
Yep.
I've been having some back channel communications with somebody who's in a different session that has remote presenters that is going right now. That is not going well.
Okay.
Or it is certainly not gone as well as this session. So I want to compliment everybody both in the room and online at how well we have been demonstrating how to do hybrid right. So it's not perfect yet, but that's one of the things about this session is that, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. So thank you. And I'm really glad I chose to come to this one and not the other one.
We're glad too.
Well, and part of it is the people who were doing the presenting in the other session haven't done it before. And so they didn't necessarily know. So being prepared. Leslie Wyborn reached out to some of us who had signed up ahead of time to make sure we'd be in the room so we could have some of that dual facilitator connection. So I wanted to just compliment the fact that you're demonstrating how we can do hybrid well. So thank you.
Thank you. We have been doing this like quite a few times, so it's good that it's sort of working reasonably well, if not perfect, absolutely not. But yeah, that's good. I saw someone move around with a microphone. Do we have any more comments from the room? So I have to say, for me, actually being able to see at least part or most of the room is actually really useful. I still remember having had to facilitate a session where you just only saw the like an empty chair or the laptop on the front desk, and it's just so difficult. So this is so much better. So that's really something I appreciate from ESIP, providing this view.
Excellent meeting. And I want everyone to thank Stephanie for your incredible patience with all of us. And I know you shared with us that you didn't feel well, despite the challenges, you were able to push through the whole thing. So thank you, Stephanie, for really very efficient facilitation. Thank you. And many thanks to Leslie as well. And to all of you, to Jens for great presentations. My bottom line is, do we like it or not? I actually love it. It's a small planet of ours, and we are members of a small family around the world. So we will learn how to communicate with one another with whatever technology we would be able to use. So let's just be hopeful for humans to understand each other better and better. So thank you.
Thanks, Larissa. And thanks everyone for coming to the session. So I know it's at time, but I just wanted to say we have a channel on the Slack that I think is currently called Bridging Time Zones or something like that. So if you would like to continue the discussion, please feel free to join that. There hasn't been much happening since the last meeting, I think, but it would be great if you have any more comments. I would like to have another discussion, online, offline, whatever. Just we can continue in a persistent fashion there. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining, and thanks in particular to Jens and Leslie for helping run this session. and enjoy the rest of your day.